guys, we're back again with another Thursday Build Series episode for the Nowaskey Performance channel. We're glad you guys are back. This is a very exciting FXR project that you know we're working on for one of my close friends and my Snap-on guy. So it might be worth mentioning that we only use Snap-on tools in this shop. So Aaron and I have been buddies for a long time, and you guys know that this was his original Harley, and now it's gonna be his son's first Harley. So we're excited to keep this project moving. So we're at a point now where Jake is going to create custom wiring harness for this bike like Jake does. We know he's an expert at that, so he's gonna refine the harness and make it really nice and looking good for this custom FXR. And then from there you can see it's kind of the finish up work now. We have a lot of the major components done, but it's again the wiring harness, brake lines. We're gonna make a cool reservoir mount back here. This could maybe end up being something someday, but I have an idea, making a bracket that goes across the plate mount back here to hold the resis. It's in my head. We'll see how it turns out, right? But that's gonna be really cool. And yeah, so Jake is gonna do his thing here and try to get this thing wrapped up for you all. And so Aaron's son, Trent, can maybe take this thing for a ride yet this season, because it is September in Wisconsin, but we are hoping to have this wrapped up in just a few days now. And with Jake on the job, I have no doubt that it's gonna get done. So, as Jake would say, stay tuned for another great Thursday episode of Nowaskey Performance.
Today we're gonna continue working on Aaron's FXR project. As you've seen in previous episodes, we've gotten a lot of the other stuff wrapped up and done. And now I am going to get into wiring. Luckily enough for me, well, I guess not luckily enough for me, because as you all know, I like wiring. This bike needs like 7 wires to run. However, he's getting some LED lights and stuff like that, so we're gonna upgrade some stuff with a fuse box instead of these circuit breakers and just kind of make this thing pop. So stay tuned as we go. So first we're going to work on removing circuit breaker mounts and get rid of them. I'm going to work on mounting the fuse block, and then I am going to start running my wires from up here, which are all my control wires, and that's where I'm going to start. So I'm going to drill out these rivets, which ironically we riveted when we put this frame back together. But like any well laid out plan, things change. Now that I have them removed, figure out how this sits on here, how I want it to sit on here, and then we're going to mark them holes. I'm going to try to use some of the holes that are already in there so that way I don't have to re-drill. However, I have a feeling that I'm gonna kind of be stuck re-drilling all 4 of these holes, because they really don't line up anywhere. So I'm gonna take a little scribe and just kind of scribe on my So as you can see, I just kind of got a little hole right there, and I'm gonna drill that, put a bolt through. I'm going to remove this little plate real quick just to clean up the back where I have the bolts, where I drilled the holes. Always like to make sure I clean everything up so that way there's no burrs or whatnot and everything fits the way it's supposed to fit. So we call this a burr whip. Anybody in the metal fab world kind of knows what that is. It's a little blade. As you can see, there's little chunks from where the drill came through. So this just kind of goes through and cleans that up. So now that I have all the holes cleaned up and ready to go, I'm gonna put this back on and tighten it. You'll notice that I left one of these. So for earlier model FXR, any earlier model bike, or even the early twin cams, the power that came from the regulator, power that came from the battery and the regulator went to a spot on a circuit breaker, and then from that circuit breaker it went to your main power feed for any kind of fuse or any of that. So I'm going to keep that because I'm still going to run one circuit breaker. Found the correct bolts I needed to get this mounted, so that's all there. Now I'm going to start working on getting some of my other wiring taken care of here. This is everything from the handlebars that I'm going to need. And so all that stuff should be pretty easy. And then I have my wiring that comes from the coil, or that goes to the coil from the ignition system. So these are the things I'm going to work on next. I need to trim this back a little bit because I have connections in here that I need to get to. And with this loom, I like to kind of just melt it a little bit so it doesn't fray on me when I cut it. Just get kind of the loose ends wrapped up there. I don't put too much heat on it or go too far in because then obviously you're going to melt the wires and everything. So now these are all the wires that are going to go to my controls. This one's going to be my left. This one's my right. I know that because I've done so much wiring that I can tell you what the wires all do. Get that, that's gonna go in there. So, this will eventually go in through here. Gonna go along the frame like that, and these will all go to different places, such as, well, we won't have a horn, so I won't need that one. This is going to go to my turn signals, and these three are going to go to my headlights. Actually, that one's going to go to my fuse for headlights, and this is going to go to my headlights. This one and this one will be an accessory wire, which will kind of go to the same spot. More turn signals. These two are for ignition. Actually, these three are for ignition. One's for on-off and one's for start. And then this here is for my brake lights. Told you I could tell you each one. Then we're gonna run this. It'll go up and back here. Because this is gonna be my on-off. And these I'll probably end up extending so that way I can get where they need to go. Ones that I am going to have to figure out and look in the book for are going to be my ignition system, because some are going to go to a keyed switch and some are going to go to the coil, so that I have to figure out. I don't want to have to run everything in here if it doesn't have to run in here. Some wires need to run in here, some I can splice off in this area back here to go back for like my headlights, turn signals. I think I'm going to put my turn signal module on the other side so that way I have enough room for everything. So I'm going to start by just making the wires that I need to get down here, and the rest will come out there. Verify I got a nice little solder joint there. Just kind kind of smoothing the edges to make sure I didn't have any sharp points when I glue some of this. I know some people out there are going to say you should use a heat gun for this. I prefer using a torch to do it that way. However, when I do it around the loom, I always use a heat gun. So I do use both methods. Now, just temporarily, I'm going to take just a piece of tape I ripped off. Just wrap around these just to keep them separate. So I do know which wires go to what for as far as on the bike. However, I had to look because there's 3 wires that go to the on-off switch and start button. I had to verify which ones are fused. So I'm going to put that there like that. I'm going to get my loom tape. So these 3 here will be all getting their own individual fuse. One is for lighting, one is for ignition, and one is for accessory lighting. Now the rest of these wires will all be going to different functions between the turn signals and brake lights, headlights, turn signals, which I think I just said already, horn, which if you watch any of our videos, that's normally the first thing we cut off. True to my style, obviously I'm always trying something new and always doing something different. I believe this bike's like an 89. We've upgraded a lot of things on it. Back then they didn't have a speedo sensor in the transmission case like you see in the newer styles. So your speedo sensor was off of here, and it was actually a gear drive speedo with a cable and all that. In order to clean this up, we wanted to do something different. So I ordered Koso gauges. You know, here we like Koso. So I ordered some Koso gauges, and they actually make a GPS module for some of their gauges. So we're gonna run a GPS speedo on here, so that way it's all digital. Now that I got these all where I need them, I'm gonna work on figuring out my length and everything, because I'm gonna wanna rewrap all of everything in more of this loom here. So that way it just completes the look of the bike, and then I'll end up having a spot right there where it kind of junctions off and it's taped and looks nice. So that's just kind of what I'm doing right now. Just figuring out where I'm running everything here. So those are gonna go for my ignition system. This is my brake light. These are my turn signals. That's gonna go back up that way. I decided to use heat shrink on these because I'm all doing onesies and twosies here, and it just looks better than the tape. So these 2 are for ignition. So like I said, everything's got like onesies and twosies of where's everything's going now. So I'm just gonna kind of get these laid out. So I will point out that as I'm doing this, I'm not really putting direct flame on the heat shrink. I've got it far enough away that it's just the heat, because if you do apply a bunch of direct flame to the heat shrink, you will burn it. Then everything you've done to make it look nice, you gotta start over. I'm probably gonna run them there. I actually think this goes underneath, which is gonna be better for me anyways. First, I'm going to loom every one of these individually. So now that I have these all loomed and I don't know where they go. So being that we started this bike with 0 wiring on it, it's a little more in depth than some of our other bikes. There's not as much wiring here, but I started with nothing. So if you come to this side of the bike, well, if I could ever get this tape to come off here, or this backing to come off this tape, I can get this on here and I can kind of show you what I'm doing. When this finally goes, oh, it's so rewarding. Just, oh, look at that. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys what I got going on here. So as you've seen on the other sides where I got all the business going, this side is gonna be my turn signal stuff. So typically there have been a ignition box here, but we've upgraded to the Dynatech ignition. So that is in here. So I don't need that space anymore. So it makes it easier for me to just kind of clean this up and clean up all the wiring and put the ignition or put the turn signal stuff over here. So that way that's over there. The other side is my fuse box with my main power. Simple, easy peasy. So now I'm gonna cut this off because I'm gonna end up putting plugs on everything and wiring everything in. Okay, so blue is gonna go onto this one. And the white's gonna go on here. So that's how that's gonna go. As you can see, I have a wire there. That's gonna go in my power. My on-off switch that will power the motorcycle. Now for the time being, I'm going to put these bolts back in here, but I do plan on replacing these with something a little more aesthetically pleasing. Probably some 12 points if I can find some.
I don't know how many viewers we have now, but quite a few.
I got my circuit breakers in, I got my fuse box in. I have a few little things I have to do here. As I'm making the harness myself, instead of like a plug and play harness, there's a few things that I have to go over, like I'm gonna have to put in a relay, a start relay, which I'm gonna put on the other side with the turn signal stuff. My kill switch is gonna go to my ignition, so that way you can turn the bike off with the kill switch. So just a few little things that I'm gonna change after I've already kind of started going through this harness. So here we go. So these two wires here that I'm working on right now, these are gonna be the inputs to the turn signals, which I have put the turn signal module right here. So this is my turn signal module. And then this is the PowerMad lighted control for our front turn signals, and running lights are going to be in the handguards themselves. So I just figured put it all right here. I'm going to put my relay in probably right here for my either here or off of here. Put in so that way I can have all my ignition stuff or my start relay over here also, since I have room. Well, these two have to go together. So I'm gonna get these together. These are my turn signal inputs, and these are the only two. Now, when I get to the other ones, those are gonna need to be spliced off because I'm gonna have fronts and rears. I'm gonna verify that I go with the right one. So if I were to put these together like this, my purple and purple, my brown and brown. So now I have that done. So now I'm going to tape this just to make it look nice. One thing I would like to point out is that this is not just electrical tape. This is actually a fabric loom tape specifically for looming wires. It's the type of stuff they use in cars, BMWs and that. Specifically, I know the higher end cars use a lot of this stuff. While you can use electrical tape if you want, if that's your choice, I prefer to use this because I think electrical tape looks unprofessional. This here I know will have to be longer, so we're going to so that'll go all the way across to the fuse box on the other side. Tackle that in a bit. So now I need to figure out what I'm going to do here. So I know this is going to be my headlight. And I have a headlight wiring that's going to come here. That's going to come there, come through here, and be off of this, because this is my power for my headlights. So have that. I also need to have, this can't just plug into there because I need to have it so that way I can run my taillights off of that same circuit. Which means I need to put a bigger plug in there, and I have to think in my head how I want that to run, because I don't want to just have a bunch of stuff stuck together. So the universal colors on Harleys, until you get into CAN bus, was blue for running or regular lights, and red and yellow for brake light. So I was making the plug for plugging in the rear and the front for turn signals and all that. I'm also going to, I don't need that one, so I'm gonna put that down there for now. I need to put a running light, which is going to come off of the fuse box, and a brake wire, which will go into the brake system when that comes time. So we'll put those in there now. Then, these being our turn signal wires, out of the turn signal module, I'm going to pin these and put these in here. And then I'm going to get a ground wire. And I'll put these in here. I'm going to get me a ground wire. To clean them up, make them look nice, and make sure they're run. Now I will say, depending on the level of the build, this one just kind of being a resto mod and getting it back running and on the road again, not really being a full conversion or rebuild, determines the level of wiring. So, for instance, on my bike, which has become kind of the staple for wiring here, every wire is loomed inside the fairing, outside the fairing, everywhere. We'll determine like this, so if this was going to be a full custom up build, show bike, all that, we would be looming everything. Being that it's a functional bike, but yet nice, I'm just making sure that it's nicely wrapped, cleaned up, and everything's ran where it should be ran. So to continue with my wiring, I am going to put the taillight on so that way I can finish making sure that that's all wired properly. Now, I can't promise you that this taillight will stay forever, but it does the purpose of moving forward. So inside this fender, which you probably can't see there, which I know you can't see unless you look underneath there, there are tabs. Okay, so now that I got these all coming out here, kind of nice, how I would like them. Just gonna put a zippy tie on them for right now, just to kind of keep them so that way they stay where I want them to. That way I know all my lengths are gonna be the same, because as I make this plug to go on here, the other plug that goes on here, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up having to make multiple pins so that way everything can go where it needs to go. So now I'm just going to verify that I have everything where it's supposed to be. Okay. So like I had said, that for this one, I put everything off of one plug. I'm going to tape these just to make them look real nice, and I'm going to put a piece of tape around here and just keep everything secure. That being said, for each one of these, sometimes I will make a pigtail, kind of like this, that comes off, so that way each one is plugged individually. Like I said earlier, that some of this will probably change again next year, so I'm going to leave that option for next year when I do the next phase of this bike. So I've decided that with this relay, I was going to put it on the other side, but I want to put it over here because this is where all my ignition stuff already is. So I end up tucking that right there, wire it in. One of the next things I do So while this is a pretty basic wiring system that I'm doing on this bike, some of my wiring systems can take me up to a full week. I'll have a good 40 hours into wiring a bike. I think it's a little more intense than this because I will have wires running everywhere, and sometimes I won't know where they're supposed to go until I lay them out and pull them back out. My personal bike, I had the harness on and off about 6 times before I was happy with how it was laying down and where it was going to go. Right now I am extending these wires for the dash. So this is not the correct dash or gauges for this bike. These are COSO gauges, upgraded gauges. These are also, like I had said earlier, we will be using a GPS module to actually take care of the speed on this. instead of having an actual cable from off the front wheel. So it's just kind of little tricks we're doing for this one. Aaron and I had talked and we didn't want to have the Speedo drive cable off the front wheel if we didn't, because we're trying to clean everything up and make it less cluttered, look less cluttered. So that's how this all came together. All my wiring for my dash figured out, and up here, plugs made for what I need. I need to put a terminal on here and on the dash, which I'll do that when I put the dash on. And I ran all my wiring that I need to wire in to my different spots here. I have wire that is to go there to my oil sensor. A couple of these have to go to the other side for power, ground, and then onto the headlight and the handguards. So I got all my wiring ran down here, and I'm wiring in my left and right turn signal into the module, so that way on the gauges turn signals will work correctly up there because they are a all-in-one unit. Then I'm going to run my wiring to my oil pressure sensor, which is right here. Finish wiring up the little bit I got over here. I got a few grounds in that I have to do there. Then I'm to the point where I can make battery cables, put a battery in it, and verify all the lighting works and everything works. And then move on to finishing up the rest and getting her started. I got my starter wire, my oil pressure wire. I am working on my voltage regulator wire. Get this ran in there, then I can have everything buttoned up that comes up that way. I have to wait to do the mid controls. Actually, we're doing forward controls on this to finish my brake wires. And then from there, I'm going to get my headlight on. These are for my grounds. I'll worry about the ground when I make the cables, which I'm waiting for some wire to come in to do the battery cable, because I want to make my own battery cables for this bike because of how I want them to lay out. This wire here I have to wait to do, so it'll go here to a oil pressure sensor. However, this sensor is bad. The whole thing spins, so I have one on order that will not be here till tomorrow. So I'm gonna just leave that one so I know exactly where I want my wire to go there. These two here will be like my last two wires because these are for the brake light switch. So this one comes from up here for that switch. This one will go for this one down there. So until I put the forward controls on and know exactly where I'm gonna put my brake light switch, I'm not gonna run that wire. So we can put that back here. So I have a few things I gotta tackle up here. Need to put a plug on there so that way these can plug in to come on and off. And then I have this GPS module, which is gonna go in the tank here. And then somehow, some way I have to have this out. I'm thinking I'm putting it by the headlight somewhere so that way I can read the speedo, the GPS signal for the speedo, but that'll be one of the last things I put on also because I might have to raise this tank back up. Also, I noticed after I did all of this that I'm gonna have to run a ground and a power cable to the fuel gauge, even though it'll be carbureted, so it'll have a petcock and all that. Still like a functional fuel gauge. No sense in doing it if you're not gonna do it right. So I am gonna install mirrors and the hand grip, start for the hand grip mounts. So we like to use, one of the things we started using were these hand guards, and then we use the lighted kit. And then we really like these Arlen Ness mirrors. So I'm not 100% sure where I want that yet, so I'm gonna grab my hand guard, get my bolt started. Kind of come straight off, so I'm gonna tighten it down. It moved a little bit, which is fine. So now if I have an issue with these moving at all when riding, they're pretty tight. If I have any issues, I'll end up putting a star washer in there to kind of lock them into place. So just like the other side, I'm going to install this mount, this mirror. I'd like to point out that there are a bunch of different styles of these for different years and different controls. So make sure you're getting the one for your bike or your controls. Different years had different controls, different styles. Now that I got that mount on there, I'll put this on just to verify that everything fits and is where it should be. Make sure my mirror. Now I'll probably have to adjust these mirrors in that once I get everything, all the grips on and all that stuff, because to make sure they're adjusted properly. But for now, they look pretty close. So now I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to take the one off on this side. Oh, I did control one. So now I'm going to take this little connector and finagle it through here. So if you buy these, it is a little bit of a tight fit. You do got to kind of work it, but they do fit in there. And I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to take this wire, run it up under, plug it in. Now, I'll be tightening these down later once I get them pitched the right way I want them. So you'll see on some of our bikes that we've done, like Jack King and that, we have these on there. We do not have a headlight, as we don't ride that bike in the dark. This one will be ridden, so it will have also a headlight on top of these running lights. And the turn signals are also in this unit. So this will be light up yellow as turn signals, and that's white for running lights. So now I'm gonna put this headlight on. I will need to put a plug in that on here. I will take care of that to go with this wire. Once I get a plug, I do not have one in stock, I just looked. So just like the rear, we did not do an LED for a headlight, but we wanted to do something period correct. So that is why we chose this one. Honestly, what I will probably do is I will probably remove the light bulb and run this cord that I have made for the headlight all the way inside, so it's nice and clean without a bunch of plugs on the outside, and then have my plug on the inside of the headlight bucket. Look at that, it looks like a motorcycle. All right, guys, so as you can see from this video, we got majority of this wire done. There is a couple small loose ends that I'll need to take care of as I complete the bike, which will be in the next episode. I have my tack wires that I need to put plugs on. I have fuses I have to still put in the fuse box, and I need to make battery cables. Those being said, I don't have the material here to do those until tomorrow. And then when I get all that stuff, I'm gonna also put my headlight wire in and get everything else wrapped up. So if you like this video, make sure to give a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and make sure to stay tuned to the next episode of this bike.